Hey everybody, here we are on episode 3 of Who the Heck Did I Marry? Jehovah's Witness edition. And I have to kind of continue the other episode a little bit further because there's some things I need to elaborate on. Um, the DUI, disfellowshipping, and drinking part. The story is actually still continuing with that part because I talked about how Troy, as we call the ex, had been disfellowshipped before. In the Jehovah's Witness world, that usually is a pretty serious thing, and you did something pretty serious, so you definitely kind of need to come clean about any of this stuff. And really, in a good relationship, you should probably talk about everything anyways and lay it out on the table before you get married, especially if it had a huge impact on your life and huge impact on who you are as a person. So if you think that Troy got disfellowship because of his drinking and DUI, you would be wrong because this really had nothing to do with any of that. Um, as I had mentioned before, his dad called me before the wedding, which I do appreciate that he tried to do that. And just to make sure that Troy had told me everything, he did want to make sure. That's what he called about. And so, as I had also mentioned before, I was not very comfortable with Troy's family and friends yet because he, in hindsight, kind of kept me away from everybody. Yeah, I had met them, but we really didn't do much together. So, I didn't know them on like a deeper level. It's just kind of weird, but a red flag. I had never been to his house. Like, he lived with his parents. I had never been there at his place. But he also had told me that his mom's like super private and everything. And so he just immediately always came over to our house. But that should have been a little bit of a red flag. Like, never have gone to someone else's house. Um, and after marriage, I did go over to their house, and yes, they are super private. Like, they never have people over. I don't think it was anything weird per se. It's just like how they are. Um, but the dad called me, and I just felt like awkward a little bit too. Plus, when you're Jehovah's Witnesses and everything is just awkward, you're honestly on edge all the time because you're constantly checking yourself. Am I doing something wrong? I did have this guilt over me from when I had gotten in trouble, but I was like appreciative that my future father-in-law, called me before the wedding, and he said, "I just want to make sure that Troy told you everything." And yes, to me, I was very confident. Yes, he did. He came clean. He told me everything. And here's what everything was on my end. Troy, when we were dating, kind of had to come and tell me why he was disfellowshipped. It was common knowledge that he had been disfellowshipped. Um, so people knew. They didn't know why, but they did know. So sometimes I also feel like when you're in a cult that hangs over you forever. So a little part of me, when my friend said you shouldn't marry him, he's not a good person, felt like, oh, are you judging him for something that he did as a like basically teenager? Um, so you're still like judging him because there's a book out there called Shunned. I forgot who the author is, but she wrote about this. She said that her sister had been disfellowshipped once and was so lucky to have been married to an elder after she was disfellowshipped because the congregation won't forget that you were disfellowshipped. Like, they feel like you were not loyal to God, and it basically hangs over your head. And so I did wonder, like, oh, do people like judge him for having been disfellowshipped? Well, I didn't, because especially how I knew that I was being treated for having like this blemish on my person. It's so stupid, really, but that's how it is in Jehovah's Witness world and cult world. That's just how it is. So Troy had gone to Bethel, and the story really like affected my heart. Like I had a lot of compassion for him. He went to Bethel when he was 19, and that was a big deal. Bethel is the headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. They really urge, especially young men, to come and serve at Bethel. And when you go, it's such an honor in the congregation. It's just like you're just so highly esteemed. Wow, like he's going to Bethel. It's a big deal. And really, what it is like they get all these young people and people to come and work for free for them essentially, but you feel like you're going to volunteer for God, for like making a difference, for doing something great. It's just so highly esteemed and looked at in a positive way. So you have to be selected. Not everybody gets to go. They especially take guys, young guys, because hey, let's not forget it's a patriarchy. So, men are always going to be like highly esteemed and have more privileges and more all everything. But Troy was selected and everybody was excited. Like, this is the biggest deal. He gets to go to Bethel. Bethel is in New York. This is so cool. And um, his grandpa, who is a sweet, good, kind person, I think he knew his grandson. I think he saw, like, my 19-year-old grandson, I don't think Bethel is the place for him because it's really institutionalized living. You have a roommate who's a guy. It's very, very regimented. And I mean, I kind of already knew always that it was not a place for me because I'm like a free bird. Um, but also I had like no pressure from my family ever to do anything. Like they just my family was a little bit different. When there's people who are super Jehovah's Witnesses and listen to the rules of the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses, I feel like there's a few that aren't like that, that just take the Bible very seriously and then think, well, if it's not in the Bible, you can't really make this rule. Here's an example. Jehovah's Witnesses look down on going to prom. It's an unwritten rule, but basically, if you're a good Jehovah's Witness, you don't go to prom. Well, we had moved from Europe, like I mentioned before, so you hear it sometimes, like I have a little bit of an accent. Sounds a little Wisconsin, I know. I like it. Eh? Um, and we didn't get that memo coming from Europe that this unwritten rule is that prom's bad because we really didn't have prom, and my folks were like, well, that's not written in the Bible, that's a man-made, rule. So they didn't think anything of it. I wanted to wear a pretty dress. I wanted to dance. They knew me. I was like not a trouble. Like I didn't do anything wrong. I was like such a good girl. And so they let me go to prom. Actually, they came to prom. They came to watch me at Grand March. Had a blast. Had the best time. I sewed my own dress. I mean, I just had a blast. I'm so happy that they let me go. Like they were so cool for doing that and being supportive and chill. Um, so that was like an unwritten rule. And then after prom, the congregation, you feel that they treat you a little different. I would almost call it like they mark you or they soft shun you because you're still in that group, but you feel like people are looking at you as not that spiritual. Like maybe she's like on her way out. She went to prom. It's such a dangerous place to be in because they keep you so isolated from everyone else. Everyone else is worldly. You are a Jehovah's Witness, and if you associate with worldly people, oh, that might affect you and you might leave God. So we need to stay in this close-knit community. Um, and it just eliminates a lot of people. So you're basically with a small group. Everyone knows each other's business. And then to be soft shunned in a group like that is so bad for your mental health because you do feel it. You feel that people aren't really friends with you, that they look down on you, that they're judging you. And when we moved to the States, I went to a new high school. So I had like if you kind of look like my history, I had moved to a new country. My mom got married, and that was hard, moving and having a new stepdad and moving countries. And I still had family in Europe, so that's very hard. But I was so happy because there was another Jehovah's Witness girl in my school now, and I really liked her. She's very nice. But she was already baptized, and I wasn't. My family, again, were like more Bible oriented than organization. And lately, the push for Jehovah's Witnesses is to baptize young, get them in and locked in early. My family never agreed with that. They thought that Jesus was 30 and he was perfect. Like, he didn't even get baptized as a kid. We don't baptize kids. Because also, when you get baptized as a Jehovah's Witness, it's a contract. You've just committed to being a Jehovah's Witness. And that's the point when you can get disfellowship. Before that, you really can't. Um, and my family felt like you can't sign a contract when you're 10, 11, 12, 13. Like, it's not valid. It's not legal. And so I didn't get baptized, and I didn't really feel a rush, to get baptized. But my friend in school was baptized. And I really think that her parents did not want me to hang with her. I tried. They didn't want me to hang with her. So you're in this small group. There's like 5 kids in your congregation. And the kid I go to school with basically doesn't really talk to me because she doesn't view me as spiritual as how she is. And I don't even know if it was her. It was more her parents. Her parents were like mega spiritual. Her parents were so psycho, actually, that the dad had a talk. He was an elder before one of the conventions on how we should dress before the convention. And he said that before he lets his girls go, and again, it's always the girls, it's always dress and grooming, he makes them bend down in their convention outfits, sit down, bend down, squat, move in every which way. It was so messed up to hear that. Like, how degrading. How degrading. It was so messed up. So that's the kind of household they grew up in. Was luckily not mine. Luckily. Thank God. I would have died. I probably would have been suicidal. It's just horrible. We had another family. The kids, they were so good at basketball. They were so tall. Everyone was like, oh my God, are you playing basketball? No, I want to, but no. And they were not allowed to watch PG-13 movies. This is how strict it is. They were not allowed to watch PG-13 movies at 17 and 18 years old. And I had luckily my best friend to this day. She rocks. She's so cool. Um, we've been friends since I was 14, and she was chill. And her parents were chill too. And her dad was an elder too, but they let us be. Like, I mean, they had their moments. My parents had their moments too, but it's like for most part, we were blessed with really good parents. And we were like, we got to be teenagers together. We did everything together. So luckily for us, like, luckily for me that I had her. She, like, it was just so wonderful. Um, and like, but in school it would have been nice to have like your Jehovah's Witness friend who gets you, who doesn't celebrate holidays with you, because in the morning, God, I had so much anxiety because they do the national anthem and or the pledge, and we didn't do that in Europe. Like, in Europe nobody does that. So it was like really weird for me to have to now like avoid that. And it's another thing as a Jehovah's Witness that you have to pay attention to, that you're not doing it wrong. So what her and I did is we would go to the bathroom in the morning with permission for the teachers and wait out. Actually, they did do the national anthem. They didn't even do the pledge. They did do the national anthem. And of course, our secretary was like this sweet old lady who would forget to put it on. And so we're in the bathroom waiting, waiting, waiting. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So sometimes we'd go back to the classroom, and the sweet old secretary, she either forgot it all day, or in the middle of the class she was like, oh, I forgot to do the national anthem, and then everyone jumps up. Well, you're not allowed to jump up as a teenager in the middle of your class. I had so much anxiety, and I have to be honest, sometimes I accidentally, like, full of like anxiety, did get up. I didn't like sing along or anything, but then I felt so guilty for doing that. Or I always try to like go sharpen my pencil or stand by the pencil sharpener. It's just so cruel to do this to kids. That part I really hated. The holiday part didn't really bother me, because I really did believe it. So, and it wasn't a family tradition, so it didn't bother me that we didn't do birthdays, that we didn't do Christmas. That didn't bother me. Um, so going back to all of this, I almost have to take a break to gather my thoughts here, where I got sidetracked. Oh, so Troy had to kind of come clean to me, and tell me about why he was disfellowshipped. And he told me he went to Bethel, and his parents were good parents, but I think just emotionally not really connected to him. And his grandpa had advised him, I don't think Bethel is a place for you, which is a really, really nice thing, because anybody else who's a Jehovah's Witness would be hardcore, like just seeing it one way. Bethel equals holy, equals, honestly, equals status too. Let's be real, it's status. They always pretend like everything is like Jesus and we're all like Jesus. I call baloney on that. It's status. Actually, right before I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I said to a elder's wife, I said, we have an elite and I can't stand it. And she said, I know, we do. And it did bother her too, because we do. Come on, we do. Like, so you're a Bethelite, you're part of the elite. So basically, their son got picked to be a part of the elite, and you're proud of it. I get it. You're like groomed to be proud of it. But they weren't like really emotionally connected. And so the grandpa had seen, I don't think my grandson will do like really well here, but I think they almost thought like, how dare you say something like that, you know? And nobody listened to that good advice that he was trying to give, that this was not a good environment for him to be in. And so this is what he told me. What I later found out, not even one bit true, like complete made up lie. But this is the story that he told me why he was disfellowshipped. So he had gone to Bethel at 19, and a lot of the other parents, I'm not trying to throw his parents under the bus here or something, but I'm just going to tell it how it is. A lot of the other parents came and visited their kids. Like, he had a really, really good friend who we're going to call James, and he has his own story to tell, honestly. But James' parents came and took them out to dinner, and they would take Troy along because Troy's parents never came. And it was not an issue of money. It's just, I don't think they even thought of like, we should go visit him. They just didn't think like that. Um, Other kids at Bethel got care packages from their families or even some money. And Troy didn't, not at all. And so at Bethel, you're volunteering there, you're basically broke. And I think they give you like, I do not know if this is the number. This is what I remember. It might be wrong. Correct me in the comments, but this was like 99, 2000. I think you got $30 a month. Could that be right? I don't even know how you can survive on that, even if everything else is paid for you. But they still had to go to congregation meetings, like church, um, 3 times a week at the time. So I know they had to take the subway, and that costs money. So how are your $30 really going to get you far? Plus, Jehovah's Witnesses have to wear suit and ties and fancy shoes all the time. Well, how are you going to live off $30? But I think they just hope that people visit and slip you money and stuff. Like, other people basically have to support you. So he was at Bethel, newbie, and his um like work overseer was really, really mean, like mean to these young teenagers. Cognitive dissonance, like, you're in God's holiest of holy places, and this elder dude who's like your boss basically is a total jerk. That's weird, right? You would think, I am in the holiest place, everyone should be like so kind, right? Well, yeah, it wasn't like that. So I think that was already like shock to your system. And then um 9/11 happened, and he was there from out of state with no family nearby, really like by himself, as still a teenager. And if you look up, it's Wallkill. No, wait, it's not. It was Brooklyn Bethel. Sorry, I take that back. It was Brooklyn Bethel. And they could see the Twin Towers from what I gather, and I'm pretty sure it was such a traumatic story to tell. So I'm hoping I'm recalling this right, but I think they all saw people jump off the towers. And I can't even imagine what it does to you as a young person. Like it must be horrible. And I really think he was just really depressed after that. And he told me he felt trapped in the city because he didn't have a car. You really couldn't get out of New York City. This horrible thing just happened. If you lived through 9/11, we all were in this state of fear. I was in a different state, far away, very rural, and I remember thinking, where's the next plane gonna hit? Where's the next terrorist attack gonna hit? Like I went home to my mom's house. I was like in a state of shock and really fear. So I can't even imagine how it was for the people in New York City. It is traumatizing. I'm sure it had like lasting psychological effects. Horrible. And he again saw, like Troy again saw all these other parents and come get their kids like out of there or come visit them, and he's like, nobody did that for me. I was really feeling stuck because you also can't like throw in the towel. You feel like you got invited. It's such an honor, but he really felt like very stressed to be there. And as he put it, he really just wanted to go back home. Like he didn't want to be there anymore. He was like traumatized. His boss was so horrible to them, and he said that his buddy James actually asked for a transfer for a different position. And in hindsight, he should have done that too because James did better and had a nicer boss. But if your boss is like horrible to you every day, and then you go through 9/11 and you feel like nobody cares for you, I have so much compassion for all of that. And so what Troy told me is that he started using someone else's prescription drugs. Like they do have roommates. So I don't know if it was the roommates or something, but something to like help him cope. And I didn't know what exactly he took, but he said that he ended up getting disfellowshipped for that. And I was upset. I was like, they disfellowshipped you for that? That's so cruel. Like you were this kid and you were looking for something to, help you cope through this horrible, horrible situation. And then I felt like, kick me while I'm down. Like they're really going to disfellowship this young kid for taking or like abusing prescription drug. Like there's no compassion there, like no help. And so they packed him up and you go home disfellowship. Like it's like you went from like the biggest high getting to go to Bethel to the possibly biggest low, getting disfellowshipped at Bethel. I just felt like so horrible. Like I felt like he had just gone through all this stuff, and then now you also get disfellowship and get to go home like with your head low. That's what it felt like. And so that's what he told me he was disfellowshipped for. And why would I not believe that? Like this, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't supposed to lie. We're supposed to be honest. And the way he told the story, what I think is so scary in life is people can look you in the face and lie so great. You can't even imagine that they're lying to you. It's crazy. Like it was a whole story and there was no reason to ever doubt this. I bought it hook, line, and sinker, and why wouldn't I? He seemed really genuine about it. And then when his dad called me and asked me, like, did Troy tell you why he was disfellowshipped? And I was like, yeah, he did. That was really hard for him. But here, we made a big mistake. I was young. I didn't even think that anybody would lie to me. Now I think differently, of course. Like, this whole situation has changed me. But I should have asked him, like, yeah, like, why was he disfellowshipped? What do you think? Or something, because I do think his dad would have talked about it because it meant a lot for him, for me to know, so that I can make this decision before I got married. Um, and I was like, yeah, he told me. And then that was good. And so I didn't really think anything of that part. I was like, okay, things happen. And again, I had like this whole blemish on my Jehovah's Witness person myself. I almost got disfellowshipped. Um, And so I really thought, like, well, let bygones be bygones, because, you know, that was in the past for him. This is in the past for me. We have a fresh start together, like happy family. So, you know, all good, right? All good. All right. So then we ended up having our wedding. It was kind of weird because his parents like left during the wedding. I don't know why, but it's just I still to this day I don't know why. But they have, I don't know if they went out to eat. I don't know what happened, but at midnight they showed back up to my mom's house and were knocking on the door, and she had people from out of town stay there for the wedding, and they all opened the door like all groggily, and they're like, we have to go back into the reception place. We left a coffee carafe there, or whatever those things are called. And my mom's like, that was hours ago. Like, we're already all home and you can't get back in there. They locked that place up. So I think they had brought like this thing for coffee, like those big, like, is it called a coffee urn, I think. And then they left? I don't even know, but it was just weird, right? And then what was also weird was at some point, and I always kind of chucked it up to like Troy having social anxiety or just not liking like big parties and stuff. We had like a nice time, and then suddenly he goes, "Okay, it's time to go now." Like really abruptly. And I will not forget it because I felt like, hey, this is like our wedding, like, and I just felt like that's so bossy kind of. But okay, yeah, let's go. And I'm always like catering to his what I think is like social anxiety and stuff. So I'm like, okay. So we left like pretty abruptly and pretty early. Okay. And then the honeymoon happened. And that's a whole nother story that I will talk about tomorrow. So hold on tight because this ride keeps